everyone, and welcome to today's series of Baker's Diaries. Today we get to interact with one of the best in the industry. She is an author, she's a baker, a consultant, and a trainer. She has made a name for herself within the industry and inspired many along the way. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Introduce yourself to our viewers.
Hi everyone, my name is Maureen Kamari. I'm the founder of Amari Baking Center and Chiffon Cakes by Amari as well.
So how did it all begin?
Wow, I used to love baking. So baking has been a passion that I've had for so long, since I was very young. That kind of developed into a business over time. Yeah, so let me just say, I was baking, then over time I just kind of started selling cakes. Then I decided to actually get serious and start a business.
So when you began the training bit of it, what inspired you to start the training?
I started training because people were actually inquiring about training. So I was baking, and at that time I had actually a small shop, and I would sell cakes, and people would come in, they'd buy cakes, but at the same time they also wanted to know how to bake. But at the time I didn't have a capacity to actually train people. So after some time I decided to actually start training, and it became a core business to the point where at some time I was not selling cakes, I was actually only training people. Yeah.
What does training at Amari Baking Center entail?
So we have various classes ranging from different skill levels. Obviously we have a lot of basic classes for people who are starting, and we segment them based on topic. Like for example, cake making and decoration. We have pastries, we have yeast and bread classes, and some are just decoration classes. So we start with basic level class, then we take you to intermediate and advanced. So we have various classes on different skill levels.
So for those taking, let's say, a beginner's class,
yeah,
do you have a particular tool set or kit that you would require them to have with them?
Yeah, most of the time we do actually refer them to Topserve Limited, and we are usually strongly suggesting for them to buy the piping sets, because those tend to come with everything you need for writing, borders, all that stuff. So we like referring the piping set as well as the beginner's kit, the 88-piece beginner's kit. It has a lot of the measuring tools you need, the items you need for decoration, so we tend to tell you to at least start with those ones.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why would someone who wants to start out come train with Amari?
The first reason why I would suggest people to come to Amari Baking Center is that we have a hands-on training. Basically, we make sure whatever it is you're learning, you are doing it yourself. You're not going to observe, you're actually going to bake the cake. If things go wrong, you actually get to see it go wrong. You take home your products. We actually have you bake your cake, decorate it, and actually go home with it. So you're able to actually do everything hands-on. We also mix it up. We do hands-on and we do a little bit of theoretical. So we show you not only how to do it, but why you're doing these things and all that. So we do tend to have a very hands-on experience. The other thing is that we have contact. We like to keep contact with our students after, so that we make sure that what you've learned has actually helped you. So we have community groups that do that. And we try in every way, even on our socials, we actually try and make sure that we are keeping track of our alumni to make sure that you're doing a good job. We also come up with meetups. Actually, we were doing a lot of this before the pandemic actually happened, where we do meetups for past students to come sit together and sort of discuss if they have any challenges. Out of that, we're able to see how to help them, and any classes we can come up with based on that. So we are very hands-on, and we do want to make sure you've had a good learning experience.
What inspired you to put out books?
So since we've been dealing with a lot of bakers for quite a period of time, we get a lot of inquiries from people who are out of county, and a lot of them are sharing that they may not be able to actually attend the classes, and how else would they be able to get our recipes and the methods at which we bake or decorate. So that's what led to coming up with a recipe book or a baking book, so that we're able to actually have those recipes in one package, like a book, and then we're able to sell to people who are not able to come to class, whether they can't reach distance or whether they can't afford the classes.
What are your book titles?
So we have a total of 4 books right now. 3 of them are actually recipe books. So we have a Baking with Amari book, and it has cakes, cookies, and bread recipes. We have a guide for beginners for fondant, and we also have a beginner's guide for puff pastry. Then a fourth book is actually a business book. It's how to start up a small bakery business for anyone who's looking to actually start a business and they're not exactly sure where to start from.
Where can one get these books?
You can get all these books. They are stocked at Topserve Limited and in their Nairobi branches. So today I'll be showing you how to make a Black Forest cake, and this is a combination of a chocolate sponge and a certain way of assembling this cake. So I'll go through the steps so you know exactly how to make it. So I'll show you what we need to actually bake the cake, and then we'll bake it. Now for ingredients, all you need is all-purpose flour, you need some sugar, vanilla essence, then you need some cocoa powder. Now to actually mix the cake, we need some tools. So we need bowls, a sieve, we need a rubber spatula, and you can use either a whisk or a mixer. Now as I continue to mix the cake, you'll see exactly how I'm able to do that. I'll be using a pan in this case and grease-proof paper or parchment paper. So I'll show you how to actually prepare your pan so you can actually get started. Right, it's best to actually have maybe some cooking oil if you need to prepare your pan, and what you want to use is a pastry brush. I'm gonna move this out of the way. So I'm going to dip a little bit, get a little bit of oil, and I'll apply the bottom and also the side of the cake pan. So you want to use a pastry brush to be able to do that, and you can actually get this at Topserve. And in this case, I'm actually using a 5.5 inch pan. So this gives me about half kg, about a half kg of Black Forest. Now when I am preparing my pan, your grease-proof paper or parchment paper actually comes as a long sheet like this, but you want to actually take some scissors, trace, and cut the exact size of the pan. So as you can see, I've actually cut the size of the bottom of the pan here. So you want to place that inside your pan like that, and this just ensures that our chocolate sponge doesn't stick. And then you want to make a long strip. Once again, you just want to cut the length of the side of the pan. And the reason why we're using oil is so that our parchment paper actually sticks. Just want to make sure it goes round, and that's how we actually prepare the pan. Remember, you can actually get parchment paper or grease-proof paper from Topserve Limited. So once you prepare your pan, you put that aside, and you can actually start measuring your ingredients.
So what is the sure way of getting a perfect end result while baking a cake?
You want to make sure you're actually measuring your ingredients using tools that are supposed to be used for measuring. So most of the time you either want to use a weighing scale, or in this particular case we'll be using measuring cups.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm going to measure the different ingredients. I'll start with flour, and you want to use bowls and a sieve, and I'm literally going to do it right on top here so I can directly sieve my flour. So when you're using this cup set, which you can still find at Topserve Limited, and they actually come the cups, and then they also come with a set of measuring spoons. So when you see a recipe that says cups and spoons, these are the cups and spoons we're actually talking about. My half cup of flour. So you want to make sure you're just scooping the flour in here. You don't want to pack it in there. You can use something flat like maybe a palette knife or an icing spatula. Make sure you've leveled completely. I'll also be using cocoa powder, and I'll measure an 1/8 cup. You can also get this at Topserve Limited. So once again, you don't want to pack this, you actually just want to place it in here, level with a flat object. Now cocoa powder does tend to be a bit lumpy, but you want to try and get it as flat as possible. And then you place it on top of your flour and just mix it up. So you want to sieve this so that you can aerate your flour, and that gives you a really nice moist cake at the end. Okay, so we also want to measure sugar. So I'll be measuring a 1/3 cup. You just scoop and level. Don't pack in your ingredients, and use a flat object like a knife or a palette knife and just place it aside. Now the other ingredients are eggs. So the other thing I'll be doing is preparing my eggs, and in this recipe I'm actually going to separate my eggs. That means putting your yolks and your whites separately. Different ways you can do this. You can get an egg separator, or you can just do it manually like this.
Why are we separating the white from the yolk?
So when you're making sponges, you really want to make something called a meringue, which is a mixture of egg whites and sugar, and that is what's going to be our raising agent when it comes to mixing our sponge, because you'll notice there is no baking powder in this cake. So that whisking that can only happen when you mix egg whites has to happen. So you have to separate them. Whip the egg whites, gives you that aeration, and then you add in the egg yolk later. Because the only other thing I need to do is add this vanilla, but I'm going to add it while I'm actually mixing the cake, so I'll do that in a bit. So now I'll start mixing the cake.
Go on.
Okay. Alright, so now I'm going to whip my egg whites. So first I'll just pour them into my bowl, and then always make sure your bowl is clean. If you're unsure about how clean your bowl is, you can always wipe with a little bit of vinegar just to make sure there's no fat in there. And then I'll beat this medium to high speed until I have some soft peaks. Now I just want to check if we've gotten a soft peaks. As you can see, they're a bit wet. The best way to check is if you actually use your beater. If you push this out, lift, and you're able to see that they're a bit soft, but they're still wet since they're falling. So I'll just beat a little bit more, and then I'll start adding the sugar. Remember, you don't want them to get to be too stiff before you start adding the sugar either. So what I want to do is check if my meringue, which is basically a mixture of egg whites and sugar, is the right consistency. Now you don't want it too stiff, but you do want some nice peaks, and as you can see, I have nice peaks right there. So this is good to go. My meringue is really nice. I'm going to now start adding my egg yolks, and I'll add one egg yolk at a time until it becomes a really nice foamy smooth mixture. Now before I finish, the other thing I'll do is for flavor, I'm actually going to add some vanilla essence, and you can get Pradeep vanilla essence from Topserve. So I'm going to put a half teaspoon to flavor my cake, and then I'll keep whipping this mixture until it's nice and foamy and it's very aerated. Alright, now when you want to check if your mixture is ready, we do what we call a rebonte. Okay, so if you want to check if your mixture is at the ribbon stage, you want to lift using your whisk, and your mixture should actually leave ribbons on there. As you can see, you can actually see these ribbons. They're not dissolving, they're not disappearing. So this means my mixture is ready for the next step. So if your mixture becomes like water, it's dissolving, you actually need to continue mixing until you get there, because if it's not aerated, your sponge will actually deflate. So the final part is adding my dry ingredients into this mixture, and you sieve again. The reason why we're sieving so much fast is just for aeration, and second, realize that there is no baking powder in this cake, and the aeration will actually come from my mixture. So I need air at all times. I can just use a rubber spatula, and you're going to use the over and under method Now you want to mix this. At the same time, you want to be gentle, but you also want to move fast because you don't want your mixture to actually deflate. This is actually called a foam batter, and the reason why it actually makes noise like foam. So as long as it's making a foam noise, if it actually looks like water, that's when you know that your mixture has deflated, which is not good for a sponge. Now the other thing that happens is that they tend to be air bubbles of flour and dry ingredients, so you want to make sure you get that so you don't bake your cake and there's little air spaces with flour. Okay, I've gotten most of that, so I'll add the rest. Once again, we are sieving so that we can make sure that this flour is as light as possible, and that's going to help me maintain this aeration that we have in here. So again, over and under when you're folding, and as long as you can hear that foam sound, you're good to go. I'm going to do this one last time just to make sure I've gotten everything. You can pass your spatula to make sure you've gotten most of the flour. I'm very confident about this, so I can actually place it into my prepared pan and bake it.
So while mixing this,
yes,
I have realized you've not mixed the flour into the mixture using the mixer itself.
Yes, yeah. For this particular type of sponge, it's called a biscuit, and it's very delicate. It actually doesn't use a raising agent like baking powder, so it tends to be very delicate, and you really want to make sure you don't deflate that air. So if you use a mixer, it tends to be very strong. It might kill those air bubbles and your mixture might deflate. So there's some sponges that can use a mixer, but this particular one you don't. All right, so I'm about to pour my butter into the pan, and after I do this, I'm going to place it into the oven. Now make sure before you start baking, you've actually preheated your oven to 180 degrees Celsius or 350 degrees Fahrenheit. So using a rubber spatula to actually remove your mixture is great because it actually gets most of the mixture, so you have nothing left in the bowl. So if you don't have one, make sure you get a rubber spatula from Topserve Limited. They also have them in the kits as well, and that's my mixture. So all I'll do is actually put this into the oven for about 20 minutes.
How did you learn about Topserve?
So the first time I learned about Topserve was I had actually just started selling my book, which is about starting business, and a customer told me to drop it off at Topserve, which I'd never been at. So I actually went and dropped it off and discovered where Topserve was. Yeah, so that's how I first encountered Topserve.
And how do you learn about the new products that they bring in?
I generally engage, I think, with them on social media and their stuff generally. So I see what they're posting, and they posting on Facebook, Instagram. Yeah, so usually most of the time I'm aware of what they have at each time. Yeah.
Okay. In your baking journey, more so on the training part of it, what challenges have you faced during the pandemic, with the pandemic?
Obvious thing about us being a contact, it's a physical class. So when the pandemic happened and the first thing we were told is social distancing, we actually first had to close, just like everyone did, and reduce the number of students who are taking in, because we were taking a large number in a bit of a smaller space.
Yeah.
So that meant we had to first stop, then figure out how do we take on people but not too many people at the same time. So I think that was the first major issue. And then just being conscious of the safety thing, just kind of making sure everybody's wearing their mask and cleaning in between. So we sat down, thought how we can come up with that, how people can, social distance and still learn.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, how do we make sure everyone is, following protocol throughout the class the whole time. So we actually had to do like an in-house training of things you have to keep remembering to tell the students all the time. Another thing that we did was go online, because obviously with people being at home, we also realized we can take advantage of that. So we actually started offering monthly online classes, which we do until now.
Any opportunities that have come up with the pandemic as well?
Once again, I just say the whole online, just going fully online. So to be honest, one of the opportunities that happened at that time was that we actually had 90% of our followers online. So whatever we're posting, most people are actually able to see it. So if we're doing anything online or just putting out content, people are actually able to watch. So I'd say at least we've reached more people within like that period of time. We focus a lot of content, so we've been posting a lot of content, and that has helped our brand grow also at the same time.
Okay.
Yeah.
How has Topserve enabled you or facilitated you in your baking and training business?
It first of all just makes it easy to be able to send students somewhere they can buy stuff, and I know that they have those things, because I'd say originally when I was starting there was a problem. I'd have to tell you go to this shop, like 3 shops or something, or maybe I don't specifically know where to send you. So with Topserve, if I send you there, I'm very confident you'll be able to get baking items, ingredients, and also cake decoration items.
So what are the 3 major cake flops a baker would experience in their courses?
All right, so generally we get a lot of troubleshooting problems and issues, but I'll try and pick the top 3. So one of the things that happens with cake is that maybe it's actually involved with temperature, with like we were talking about the thermometer. If your internal thermometer or internal temperature is not good, you get that your cake is maybe peaking. It sort of looks like a mountain, maybe it has cracked, and that means that the temperature was too high there. Yeah. The other thing that tends to happen a lot is cakes tend to sink, like there's literally a hole in between, like a rift valley in between, and that happens if the raising agent, something like baking powder, was too little or not measured properly. So this is where you actually need to get the right tools to measure your ingredients.
Yeah.
The third thing that also is one of those popular things that happen to beginner bakers especially is when your cake bubbles over when it's in the oven and actually pours out, like your cake batter bubbles over, and that can happen due to 2 reasons. First, maybe you actually used the wrong amount of baking powder, like there's too much in there. It also happens if you use the wrong size of pan, like if you're supposed to use a 6-inch pan, used a smaller one, or 18-inch pan and used a 6-inch pan. So if that happens, that also tends to, have your cake batter kind of bubble over and pour.
Describe your most challenging baking project overall from when you started up until now.
Interestingly, the most recent, because I'd say everyone goes through a journey, so there's been many, but one of my more recent one, even though it's, let me say something I've sort of conquered, is chiffon cake. So there's different types of cakes in the baking world, and then there's different types of sponges. So based on what it is, there's a certain way you're supposed to mix them, and it should give you a certain result. So I had been struggling with chiffon cake for the longest time, because it needs a specific pan, a specific way you mix it, then you have to bake it at the right temperature. Even cooling is specific. Yeah, so that has been so far a challenge for me for baking, that is.
What is the one technique that in your baking or decorating process, which one would you use like on a daily basis?
Yeah. Let me say, when it comes to baking, there's one technique that's really something that's always there, that's the folding. So I'd say I do like that part. It's kind of like the end of the process before I start baking that cake, so I'm basically done. It's also one of those processes that you actually have to be very careful, because if you do it the wrong way, things may go wrong. So I think for me it's challenging, but at the same time it's like the end of something. So yeah, I do like that process when it comes to baking.
Okay. And how do you keep abreast with the current trends in the industry?
Different ways. I think a lot of bakers do this. So first thing is just kind of I follow various bakers who are, whether they're like popular, known by most people, especially online, or maybe chefs that I admire myself, or pastry chefs that I admire. So I tend to follow them mostly on places like Instagram or YouTube, because these days, most of the time, if there's a trend or there's something new happening, most people are posting about it online. So what I do basically every day, I'm just checking if there's a new trend, if there's something new. Strangely enough, even hashtags are one of those things that kind of, if there's cake trends happening, if you follow hashtags like those, you'll tend to see something new happening. So that's how I do that.
Okay. How do you source for equipment and ingredients locally?
So generally depends on what it is I'm looking for. If it's ingredients, like daily ingredients that I use for cakes, like the base ingredients. I look at wholesalers. If it's cake supplies, like, you know, cocoa powder, cherries, I look at cake supply shops. When it comes to equipment, it depends on what it is I'm using it for and the capacity. Then I think I source based on that. Like, is it going to be a large piece of equipment? Who sells that kind of thing? Then I look for it.
So for the cake supplies, where is your go-to shop? Who is your go-to supplier for that?
So my go-to supplier for cake supplies is Topserve Limited. They supply, I'd say, like 95% of my cake supply ingredients.
And how is it shopping with Topserve?
Shopping with Topserve is easy. It's quite a good experience. Yeah.
Any challenges you faced working with them?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've been shopping at Topserve for quite some time, actually years. So for me, I'd say the friction has usually been with, like, sometimes it's the expediency, like the efficiency of packing the order and giving it to, or delivering it to me. So I'd say my friction was like when I do an order and then it has to be collected. Maybe when the person I've sent gets there, it's not ready yet. But I'd say, like, for me personally, it's been one of those that it's been a journey. As we continue, we found a system that works. So at least every time that I order, I actually find my things ready. So I'd say the challenge for me originally was just that efficiency on getting the order actually ready.
Okay. Yeah. So how do you shop with them? Do you like
online? Actually, I've tried different ways. Actually, I've tried going, shopping, collecting the things. So that's when I first started. Then I tried the online, actually, where you pay and you either collect or they deliver. So I was collecting. So that actually worked out well. But it was not easy for me because it's not my go-to for them. So right now what I do is I send them a list on WhatsApp. They give me the total, I pay, or we agree on the total, and then after that I either send somebody or they deliver. So recently I actually do more deliveries. They actually deliver to me.
Okay, then for the online part that you mentioned initially, was it online, like the website part, or
yes,
online via the website?
Yeah, I was actually ordering from, because I was actually trying to try it out since people had asked me and I was curious. So I actually would shop online, pay, my order would be confirmed. So if it's too late, they'd call the next day, or if it's during the day, they'd actually call and confirm the order. Then they'd ask me, is it delivery, is it pickup? Then I'd say it's pickup.
Okay,
yeah.
Why will your teaching methods be the most effective?
So like I mentioned before, because we do a lot of hands-on training, because this is a very practical skill, so just explaining to someone doesn't really work. So what we do is we actually have you do the action, whatever it is. If it's mixing and decoration, we repeat it in various sessions. That's why a lot of our classes do tend to be longer. So we do a lot of repetition. We also do a lot of in-house training just to make sure that you've learned what it is that we've taught. And then to just crown it all, we reach out to our students afterwards. Sometimes we even have competitions so that we're able to check out if you have been practicing and if our methods are actually effective.
What would you like to demystify about Amari Baking Centre?
So one of the things I like to get clear on and exactly what we do, a lot of people ask if we're a college, and I like to get honest with people. We're not a college, we're actually just a private business offering vocational skills. We also get asked if all we do is theoretical classes. A lot of people tend to think that's what we're doing, and we like to clarify that we're doing hands-on practical classes, and that's why they tend to be our longer classes.
There are people who've recently left school, there are people who are seeking ways to generate more income, and you're in both baking and training. What would be your word of advice to them?
Right, for anyone who's looking to start baking for business, or maybe even over time start training, first I'll start with the baking. If you want to bake for business, I'll tell you first, make sure you have understood the skill. If it's training or if it's books you need to actually read and practice, make sure you have a good grasp of the skills that you're putting out products are good quality. Also, you need to be patient and realize you also have to plan ahead for you to actually have a successful baking business. The second thing, when it comes to training, I would tell you have enough experience to actually be able to teach people. If you are going to teach an intermediate level, make sure you at least have an advanced skill. If you're teaching basic, make sure you have an intermediate skill. So make sure you're well equipped to actually train people so that when they are done with your class, they are very satisfied.
For the cakes you sell, what is your specialty?
So we have a brand called Chiffon Cakes by Amari, and the only type of cake we sell is chiffon cakes. So this is a type of sponge that's really, really moist and fluffy, and it's like a really big passion of mine. So those are the only types of cakes we sell. For anyone interested, they can just go on social media and search Chiffon Cakes by Amari, and that's what we sell for now.
How would one get in touch with Amari?
Okay then. So if you want to get in touch with us, there's various ways of doing so. You can reach us via email, info@amaribakery.com. You can also go to our website, amaribakery.com as well. We're in all social media platforms. This is Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn. Just search Amari Baking Centre or Baking with Amari. And if you want to contact us, you can call us on 0701 796 688.
So thank you so much for hosting us today.
You're very welcome.
We really appreciate you and for taking your time to share your journey with us.
So welcome.
So let us know on the comments below who you would like to hear from next, or you could share your own baking journey with us. Be sure to subscribe, like and share. Follow us on our social media platforms on Facebook and Instagram. Until next time, for Baker's Diaries.